Are there any other questions from previous classes or anything that's come up in the last week when you were meditating? Yes.
Some of us who are new, first time coming.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Would I be able to follow it, or is it a continuation of the?
No, you'll be able to follow what we're doing. We try to both, serve the needs of the people who come every week and also the new people at the same time. We do the best we can. Sometimes it's a little tricky to do that, but I think in this class we'll be fine. Let me ask, have you had meditation experience before?
I've been coming in the morning, but very, very new to it.
Okay.
Maybe a few months.
Okay.
I keep getting monkey mind.
Okay. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So that's, and I do appreciate all of you who have come today on such a beautiful day. You could be doing something else this Saturday afternoon. So I appreciate you being here. I think we can start about 2 o'clock. So I wanted to start this class by asking you, for those of you who are doing meditation, what are the difficulties that you're running into? I know somebody's running into something.
Well, me, it's monkey mind. I'm new at it. I'm not very good at it. I'm working at it some, but not.
Well, when you say monkey mind, what do you really have in mind with that?
My thoughts go all over.
Right. Well, that's what thoughts do. Any other difficulties? Yes.
For me, it's the time.
The time, I mean, finding enough time. Mm-hmm. How much time do you try to meditate?
I aim for 20 minutes,
mm-hmm.
But
it's very difficult to.
Yeah, it ends up being like a quick 5.
Yeah, well, I mean, that still is better than not sitting down at all. So if you can do the 5, that's what you should do. And one of the things is to not feel pressured by it, is to be, everything in meditation works better when you're relaxed and just easy with it. So if time gets to be a pressure, then, less time may be the answer for now until you can arrange things so that you have more time. But it's good, even if it's 5 minutes, to do it every day. And most people can find 5 minutes in the course of a day. So what other difficulties are there?
For me, the quiet or the peace which comes is very fleeting. It disappears 5 minutes later. I'll go back to myself, which is not where I want to be.
Yeah. Okay. So what else do we have? Yes.
Trying to not have expectations.
That's a very good.
What the experience should be.
But it's very difficult to not have expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you always kind of examine it, and it's not.
Okay.
Try to get away from that. Just do it.
Okay. Well, those are all good ones. Any others? Sources of difficulty?
I used to think that if I just put the time in on the cushion, that was going to make the changes, or that was going to serve the purpose. And I realized that there has to be a certain attention and focus that I probably hadn't been applying as much when I was beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe sometimes I have trepidation about putting in the time, because I think things might come up and it could be challenging, or it could be good, or it could be neutral. So I think sometimes it creates an aversion to practice.
You do have to have an attitude of basically taking whatever you get, working with it. Any others? I know you had the one about you want to get up. Mm-hmm. You're shorter than the time.
Yeah, the length towards the end.
We'll talk more about that one too.
Okay.
Yes.
You said before that how to bring the right skillful quality of mind to this when you need it, in the meditation. I feel that many times I try to do that a lot, and I know what I need, but it doesn't, like I can bring the thought, like if I need patience, so I know I need patience, but it doesn't really work. I don't become patient at that moment.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the
Okay.
hardest.
Okay, so I'll see if I can address all of those in just general. Because what I'm going to talk about today is something called the 5 hindrances, which is the classic, Buddhism has lots of lists, numbered lists, and this is one of Buddhism's numbered lists, the 5 hindrances. And they're originally described in the Buddhist text as obstacles to concentration in meditation. But I think of them as obstacles to just, in general, they're kind of obstacles to life. If you look at them in a very broad sense, which is the way I'm going to look at it today. So let me just start through that list. And the normal way the list is described is the first one is sensual desire or wanting. The second is aversion or ill will. The third is the wonderfully named sloth and torpor.
What does that mean?
That means sleepiness when you fall asleep in meditation. And or dullness. Your mind gets very dull. You're just sitting there kind of in a fog. The next one is restlessness, or sometimes it's called restlessness for regret or remorse. And the final one is doubt. And those are the 5. So I'll start with doubt first, because doubt is actually, I think, the most straightforward one to deal with. And the thing with doubt is that if you are beginning meditation, there are so many different meditation practices out there. This endless variety of practices. Here in the United States, or even here in San Diego, we have Deer Park up in Escondido, we've got Meadow Forest, we've got Tibetan centers around, many Buddhist temples. There's this place here, there's the Shifang Temple a few blocks away, Chinese temple. So there's many opportunities to study meditation and to learn a meditation technique. Pacific Beach Zen Center is a wonderful place to. So you have to find the meditation technique that you wish to really make your own. And sometimes it takes some experimentation to do that. I know for myself, personally, I spent much too long doing that. I spent years and years trying one meditation technique after another, and that was not a good idea. Because when you keep changing your meditation technique, you don't develop any depth or skill with that technique. So if you have tried a few, the best thing to do is to select one and then work on it. You can take the one that we're talking about in here, or if you find this one doesn't seem right for you, you could try something else. But you need to eventually settle on your meditation technique and your approach. Yes?
I'm very new at this. Technique meaning what?
Well, it's just the process of meditation that you go through. And we'll describe a process of meditation in this class. There's a certain steps that you go through with any meditation.
So
And
you
when I
practice
talk about the technique, I'm talking about
mantra meditation. Practice
I've
that.
done mantra some.
Mhm. Well, that's the one technique of meditation. But there's body scans, there's imaging, visualizations, there's, we do a form of mindfulness in the breath in this class. So those are all the different approaches, and they all have different nuances to them. And even in the classic Buddhist text, they define 40 different meditation techniques. in a book called the Visuddhimagga, which was a 5th century Theravada meditation manual. It's a very well-known meditation manual. It describes 40 techniques, and it also describes certain personality types which match to certain meditation techniques. But mindfulness of breathing, I think, is one that's very widely acceptable to many people. So we do actually 2 techniques in here. We do mindfulness of breathing, and we also do metta meditation, which is loving kindness meditation. And we recommend those 2 techniques as a combined practice. You can use both of those techniques to great advantage, and we'll talk about how to use them. So that's the first thing about doubt. And doubt is, if you sit down, if you're not confident that this is a meditation technique I'm going to do, because it's always difficult initially. So as soon as you reach difficulty, you start thinking about maybe I ought to go do Zen or something, then it doesn't go anywhere. Because when you get to Zen, they also have a wonderful technique, but it's different than this one. So you'll learn that one, but then you'll reach that same point of difficulty, and then you're going to do Tibetan, or it can go on forever, and you will not get any depth. So shop around, find a meditation technique which you think is best suited to your, and it's also, when you look at a meditation technique, it has to also be suited to your circumstances. Some techniques work better if you have hours a day to devote to this meditation. And if you don't have that, then that's not the right technique for you. The one that we're talking about here is one that I think fits in very well with a normal, busy, working family life. So that's why we teach this particular technique in this class. So the other aspect of doubt is that this idea of it's not working. And if you're sitting down there and you're meditating and you're saying to yourself it's not working, that means that there's some definition that you define in your mind about what is working and what is not. It may be, my definition of working is getting calm. My definition of working is I don't have thoughts. It would be something like that. And so if you have these kind of expectations, then you will run into the situation where you're saying it's not working, and then the doubt comes from that. So the alternative to that is just to have an intention to do the practice. Because your intention will always work. You can have the intention to sit down and do this technique and take whatever you get, and that is something that will not fail. It won't come out the way you think, and that will be the result. But the intention of sitting down and doing the meditation will always be there and will always work. So any questions about doubt? That's fine. That one's pretty straightforward. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is the one that's called sloth and torpor. Sleepiness, dullness of mind. And there's a few sources of sloth and torpor. The first is that you're just exhausted. You're tired. You haven't got enough sleep. And there really is not a good answer to that other than getting the sleep that you need. I mean, there are things that you can do in terms of sitting up straight, trying to bring some energy to your practice. And the energy comes from, if you can develop some aspiration for this practice, which is motivating. You can do this practice in a way that you're trying to, you're trying to bring skillful qualities of mind to your life. And you're using this practice as a vehicle for you to be able to do that. Maybe sometime in the day you said something to somebody that you regretted saying, or you got angry and acted in a way you didn't think was appropriate. So when you sit down to meditate, you can have an aspiration to develop the skill not to have those sorts of things happen again. And that can give you energy. And you can also just, in general, relax. Because often sleepiness is kind of a resistance. If you're really trying too hard, you're sort of crunching down, your mind will just put up that resistance of the dull. It'll just go into dullness as a resistance to that. So always bring, to the extent that you can, relaxation, easiness, and just have the intention of doing the practice without that expectation. Usually the tension comes from the expectation. You're not getting calm and you want to get calm, and you build up that tension because you're trying to get calm. So that's how you would deal with the sleepiness. So try that. I know everybody has trouble with sleepiness, so try that and see if it works. If it doesn't work in the next class or next time you're in, ask again. We'll talk about it some more. Because there are solutions to sleepiness. It doesn't have to be something that blocks the meditation. Okay, yes.
I just want to share in my own practice, it helps me to extend the inhalation to enliven oxygen in the body when I feel sleepiness
You can
and
try that.
meditation.
Yeah, I mean, they always say bring energy to your practice, and that's how you're doing that. You're creating energy in that way. As you sit up straight and just try to, sometimes for people who meditate with their eyes closed, it might help a little if you open your eyes for a little bit. Okay, so that's doubt and sloth and torpor. So the next three are usually the more difficult ones to deal with, which is the central desire, the aversion, and the restlessness. So for the central desire, imagine a guy who is watching the Super Bowl and a commercial comes on for a pickup truck. So he sees this commercial, and by the time that commercial is over, he wants that pickup truck. So what happened was that the person who designed that commercial knew how to push his buttons. And so he can go on thinking about the truck, he watches the rest of the game. Maybe later in the day, he sits down to meditate. And the thought that keeps coming up is pickup truck. So has anyone had that experience? Maybe not for a pickup truck, but for some other thing. So how do you work with that? So for any kind of a attractive object like that, the first thing to do is when it comes up, you note wanting has arisen. And that creates a little space. If that guy, when he was watching the Super Bowl, because all these things we talk about, they can work outside of meditation as well. That guy was watching the Super Bowl and he saw that commercial. If he was mindful, he could recognize the process that commercial was doing on him. He could see wanting arising. So the next thing to notice is, what does wanting feel like? In the technique we're talking about in this class, we ask you to experience a thought. So what does a thought of wanting feel like? Any ideas? Anybody ever have a thought of wanting? Experience what it feels like?
I feel like it's exciting in a way, like it's energizing.
It's energizing. So you can feel it in the body. When wanting arises, you can feel it in the body if you develop this kind of mindfulness that we're talking about developing. And the interesting thing about wanting, because we're talking about a very pleasant object, but if you actually experience wanting, if you're doing your meditation, you're paying attention, wanting has arisen for some sensory object, you might find that the actual experience of wanting is unpleasant. The thought is very pleasant. The thought might be a trip to Hawaii or on the beach in Hawaii or something like that. But if the wanting has an element of compulsion, of that wanting something, wanting in the actual pull of wanting is unpleasant. So in this way, your mindfulness can recognize where wanting is going. And sometimes just that seeing will be enough, and the wanting will kind of let go. Sometimes not. So if you're working with it this way, that's all you need to do is you're sitting in meditation, some kind of thought comes up, and particularly if it's a thought that comes up frequently, like this guy who is meditating and this thought about the truck keeps coming up over and over again. So he sort of notes it and it goes back to his breath, and he notes it and goes back to his breath. And it keeps coming up. So that's when we say to experience it. Drop the breath as an object of meditation and experience the wanting more fully. And really see what the experience of wanting is. And the experience of wanting actually comes back to the most basic of all Buddhist teachings, which is the First Noble Truth, which is dukkha, or stress, or suffering. If wanting becomes a compulsion, becomes a pull, becomes a push on you, then it is by definition, it has become stress, it has become suffering. And the way that the wanting is ultimately worked with is to see it in that light, to see that stress that comes up. And we're talking about one instance of wanting, but if you do this as wanting comes up, one thing after another, you do begin to see the pattern of how wanting works. Because, like yesterday, I had a almond croissant with my coffee. Very nice. It was very pleasant. But at the time, I'm actually aware that there could be tomorrow a event where suddenly almond croissants disappear from this world. They're no longer available. And the point is that that's true of anything that we want. All conditioned things are impermanent. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. So if you are basing happiness on a pleasure, something that you get through wanting, then you're basing your happiness on a source which is very unreliable and will change and will not deliver the same pleasure that you, when that first wanting comes up, there's an expectation of pleasure from this. But it won't deliver that past that initial sort of moment of pleasure. Whereas what you lose is you lose peace of mind. That's a trade-off that you're going to have to make. If you're following every one of your wants, then eventually you get into what is known as the hamster in the wheel syndrome. If you've ever seen somebody put a little wheel in a hamster cage and the wheel just goes around. Because that's the way these things work. Eventually, you're always going to be chasing something. So happiness cannot be found through these things. Yes?
But doesn't this make the two hindrances, sensual desires and restlessness, almost the same?
There's a difference.
No, because when you have the sensual desire and the wanting arise,
Right.
sensation in the body,
Yeah.
in most cases, it's restlessness.
It can feel like restlessness, yes. But there's an interesting thing with these hindrances is they define the hindrances in relation to another Buddhist list, which is what they call the three unskillful roots, which are greed, hatred, and delusion. You might have heard of that. Greed, hatred, and delusion is the very basic list of things which cause us trouble in Buddhism. And they map that to these five hindrances. And the way it maps is greed obviously goes with sensual desire. Hatred goes with the aversion, ill will. But the other three, which is restlessness, sloth and torpor, and doubt, go to delusion. And the reason that restlessness comes under delusion is because restlessness is a general result of not seeing things correctly, not seeing things the way they really are. Now, when we're talking about sensual desire, when I say that there's something that you want, and if you make that to be the source of your happiness, not a source of pleasure, but a source of your actual happiness in life, then that's a delusion. So it will result in distress and the struggle and that we talk about. And the restlessness is the more general case of living your life this way. So what we always talk about, living your life by trying to arrange the world to be the way you want it to be. The result of that is restlessness. Because it's not just sensual desire, it can be aversion, all these other things are going together to cause this restlessness. So you see how it's the same, they all come from the same source. They all come from seeing things not the way they really are. But that's how restlessness is really defined in these five hindrances. Yes?
Wanting, if it is a part of your habit, for example, morning coffee, how do you deal with that?
Well, morning coffee is fine. I mean, and
But is that want?
it all depends on the frame of mind that you approach any of these things. So you can have any of the things that you like as long as you're not turning them into your source of happiness. If it's simply, so there can be pleasure, and pleasure is fine, and then there can be peace of mind. You can have pleasure and you can have peace of mind, but if having that pleasure causes you to want to hold on to something, then the peace of mind is going to be gone. So all these things, my almond croissant, your coffee, or any of these things can be experienced with complete equanimity and peace of mind, or they can be experienced as a source of stress, depending on how you see them. If you recognize their nature, which is our nature as a conditioned thing. And conditioned things change, conditioned things go away. But this applies to everything in our life. Everything in our life is a conditioned thing. Everything in our life is going to change. Everything in our life is going to eventually not be there. So if you have a need, so my happiness depends on this being there, then that's going to be a source of stress. So all we're doing in this meditation when we're working with central desire is we're recognizing when the stress arises. We're recognizing how it arises, and we also recognize how it passes away. The stress goes away when you let go of that. And the let going happens not because you decide to let go, but because of seeing. Yes?
I've been told if you label it, something, that's going on in your mind or whatever, it's helpful.
That's the technique that we teach in here. It's called noting.
Okay.
So you're meditating on your breath, and this thing is coming up. You can label it wanting, wanting, wanting. And then maybe it'll fade, and then you'll go back to your breath. But maybe it won't fade, maybe it'll keep coming back. In which case you go back to it again and experience it more fully. Really experience it. What does it feel like in the body? What is the experience of this particular wanting? And then as you would see the experience of this, if you feel like something has a grip on you, that works for me as far as allowing me to let it go. Because I don't like the experience of something having a grip on me. My intention when I do meditation, when I do these practices, is to find some peace of mind in life. I don't like struggle and stress and these things. And I do these practices with the intention that I find some peace in mind. And when I see the stress and when I see the struggle, that makes it relatively easy for me to let something go. Now, we talked the other day what you were saying about the need to get up. Mm-hmm. The need to get up when you're meditating might be, I want a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. In which case, that's wanting. It might be, it's just uncomfortable in the meditation posture. And that's just aversion, which you handle the same way. You recognize aversion is something that creates this kind of need to, try to arrange things to be more to your liking. Whereas the alternative is just to kind of open to it, to open to whatever it is that's uncomfortable and see if you can just, be there with it. I don't want you to sit there in real pain or something like that, but if there's just a little bit of discomfort, you might try just opening to it, relaxing into it, softening into it. Often when we're meditating, we have that tightness that builds up because of some kind of thing which is causing distress or discomfort or something like that. We get tight around it. Soften into it, open into it, allow it to be. And the other reason that somebody would just want to get up is the restlessness, which is a more background thing. And part of restlessness, too, is if you're living your life in a way that's totally oblivious to these practices, and then you're sitting down to meditate and expecting the meditation to take care of the restlessness which you generated during the whole other 23 hours of your life that you weren't meditating, you're asking a lot from meditation. You can consider how to bring these same practices that we're talking about in here, in terms of the meditation, how to bring those practices into the rest of your life. So there's two questions you can use to do that. And the first question is, what is the experience of this moment? anytime during the day, you can ask yourself that question. What is the experience at that moment? Is it tight, tense? Is it relaxed? Is it angry? If it's angry, what does it feel like? So get in touch with whatever it is, the experience of whatever, any particular moment of your day. You can do that as many times as you think to do it. And the other question to ask yourself is, am I bringing skillful or unskillful qualities to this moment? We talked about the unskillful qualities are those that cause harm to ourselves and to others, and that cause our mind to get stirred up, distracted, agitated. Whereas the skillful qualities are the ones that don't cause harm for either ourselves or for other people, and allow our minds to get calm and relaxed and peaceful. So you can see at any moment of any day which of those you're feeding, the unskillful or the skillful. And if you see that you're bringing an unskillful quality to this moment, you can try to shift that to a more skillful one. So what do you think in your case of wanting to get up?
If I had to guess, I feel like it's the restless.
Restless.
One, because it's such a feeling as opposed to a thought of wanting.
Mm-hmm. So if it's restless, then the question is, what does it take to just be there with restlessness? So when you sit down to meditate, your mind is very busy. What does it take to just be there with that busyness?
What does it take?
It takes just opening to it, allowing it to be, doing the technique we're talking about. Like if you're doing mindfulness of the breath, and you're doing mindfulness of the breath, and your mind is just going crazy, then open to that, allow it to be, and just see what it feels like. So it doesn't have to be anything that you have to make go away. In other words, the more you stop trying to make meditation come out any particular way, the more likely it will be to quiet down. So if your intention is for that your meditation be quiet and peaceful and calm, then the most unlikely way is it will be quiet and peaceful and calm as if you're trying to make it quiet and peaceful and calm. The most likely way it will become quiet and peaceful and calm is if you give up trying to make it quiet and peaceful and calm. And just do the technique as we describe it, and take what you get. Does that make sense?
I think so. Sometimes in my morning meditations, I start going through the day's to-do list. And I guess if I attune more into how that starts to feel, my jaw starts to clench, some butterflies start, some racehorses in the chest, because I know I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done, this done, this done. I guess if I tune into that and realize, well, first of all, I should either just get up and go start doing them, or I should, get out of the future and come back to just here.
Right, because, anytime that you're working on your to-do list and you feel this tension and stress coming up, it's because you're not really on your to-do list. Your mind is somewhere in the future of what's supposed to happen when this to-do list is done, or it doesn't get done. Mm-hmm. So if your mind was really on the to-do list, if you were just sitting there writing items that needed to be done, then the stress wouldn't be there. Because the stress is never in what you're doing at this moment. It's always in your thoughts about how it's going to come out. Always. So if you have anytime that feeling of tension or stress has come up, there's some way you're thinking, if this doesn't come out this way, that will be terrible. Or if this comes out this way, that will be great. There will be this. But anytime you're actually just working on something, and your mind is in this present moment working on this, the stress won't be there because there's no source of stress in that. The stress is always the thought of, this is how this is going to come out. And all of these things that we talk about, they always come back to that in the thing itself, it's fine. It's always you're thinking about it that creates the stress. And the thing is that the stress does not add anything to our ability to make these things come out the way we want them to. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, it detracts from our ability because it just distracts us and agitates our mind. It makes us unable to see clearly. So if we can, and so you can think of the meditation, which we're going to do just a minute. We'll do a short meditation. You can think of this meditation as training for the rest of your life. Because what we're doing in this meditation is we're, first of all, coming into the present, where we do a shift from, thinking to sensing. And when you're sensing, you're always in the present. You're dealing with your sensations. The sensations are always here. They're always in the present. So if you bring yourself into the present, if there's stress and restlessness that's coming into the meditation with you, to the extent that you come into your senses, that goes away, at least temporarily, it goes away. Because you can't be noticing the sensations. You can feel the sensations of stress, but the sensations of stress are not the same thing as the stress. All it is just a sensation. It's a certain sensation in the body. It doesn't have to be bad or good or anything else. It's just what is. It's the sensations you're bringing to the body. The stress is what you're thinking about. That I don't like this sensation. I don't like this sensation. So we do this shifting from thinking to sensing. And then we create what we call an anchor, which is what we use the breath. We come in and begin to focus on the breath. And we don't control the breath. We just let the breath be whatever it is. But we note, silently, mentally note, in on the in-breath and out on the out-breath. We allow the breath just to be whatever it is. It can be fast or slow or long or short or rough or smooth, whatever it is, we just let the breath be what it is. And as we do this, yes, you.
I think there is, maybe it's wrong definition, but I have a hard time with getting in the airport and doing the right thing. And the minute I even think about it, it's like I almost get a hot flash. That's some physical reaction. I think through stress,
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of, the mind creates a lot of physical sensations in a lot of different ways. And all we have to do is note them. In this practice, that's what we do, is note them and experience them and recognize what's skillful and what's unskillful and recognize the stress of some kind of a thought and also recognize the peace of mind that arises when that thought is let go. This is really the practice there's the phrase we've used in this class, that when you see with wisdom, you turn away from suffering. When you see with wisdom, you let go, basically, of the suffering, because you let go of creating the stress. But it has to be through seeing. It's not a logical process or a reasoning process or an intellectual process. It's seeing. Seeing the actual reality of these things which you are holding on to.
Seeing meaning the realization.
Realization, exactly. An intuitive knowing, not an intellectual knowing, an intuitive knowing. So he said we focus on the breath, and if you do that, there's just, focus on the breath going in and out, noting in on the in breath, out on the out breath, and you can focus on it anywhere you want. I like to focus right on the abdomen. You can focus on the upper lip, right under your nostrils. It has different effects depending on where you focus, but you focus somewhere, sense the breath. So you're sensing still. Now thoughts will come up, and when thoughts come up, they can just be floating by like clouds in the sky. You don't have to engage them, they just let them float by. Stay with the breath. But sometimes there's strong energies and strong thoughts that keep coming up. And those are the ones you can momentarily drop the breath and experience that thought. Really experience it and see what it feels like in the body. And you can note what quality of mind is associated with this thought. So, like in my example before, you could note pickup truck. That's one level. The next level is just to note wanting. Right? So it's better to just recognize it as wanting. Recognize that this is the lowest level. Label it wanting, 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 and then go back to your breath. And see how your mind is dealing with the things that come up. What are skillful, what are unskillful? What is the experience of these thoughts? Yes.
Can we, all of the unskillful thoughts that comes to mind, can we know them as, like you said before, greed, hatred, delusion? Will they all fall under this tree?
Yes, they will all fall under there somewhere.
Yeah.
But if they're unskillful, if they're skillful, they will not. If they're skillful, they'll be the opposite qualities. So each of these has an opposite quality.
But if it's skillful, it's okay to keep it, right?
If it's skillful, then experience it as skillful. So this is how we learn to move towards more skillful qualities of mind, because we experience that they're very peaceful and nice and put our mind in a good state. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's do a short meditation. So find a comfortable way to be. For the posture, you want to be able to, we're going to go about 15 minutes, so you want to be comfortable for 15 minutes. And you want to get the right balance between alertness and relaxation. That's always what's helpful. To be alert but relaxed. Sometimes it's helpful to imagine a string attached to the top of your head, gently pulling your head up and your chin under, straightening your spine just a little bit. So when you feel like you're comfortable and relaxed, and alert, then make the shift from thinking to sensing. Come into all the sensations that are going on right now. Could be the sounds, could be the temperature of the room, The touch sensation of wherever you're sitting. Could be pain in your shoulder, feeling a little tight. You can invite that to relax if it wants to. If it doesn't, just leave it be. Make your face relax, make your jaw relax. Sounds come and go, but you don't do anything with them, you just let them come and go. Thoughts come and go, but just let them come and go. Okay, now we're going to bring our focus to the breath. Find a place where you can comfortably watch the breath. Watch the breath coming in, watch the breath coming in. We'll use a soft mental note of in on the in-breath and out on the out-breath. And this allows us to create an anchor for our mind. In on the in-breath and out on the out-breath. There's still stuff in the background, sounds, thoughts, sensations. We just let them be in the background. Leave your focus on your breath. Notice all the characteristics of the breath. Whether it's fast or slow, or rough or smooth, long or short, whatever it is. Just in on the in-breath and out on the in-breath. after having a thought about, I wish my mind would stay on my breath. Just note wanting, wanting, wanting. And go back to the breath. If something is really strong and persistent, you can drop the breath and make that your object of meditation. Stay with it and really experience it. Noting if it's wanting or aversion, restlessness, doubt, whatever it is. Open to it, soften into it, let it be. And eventually go back to your breath. Just experience whatever's going on. And let it be. Yeah, you can open your eyes and come back to class. Any thoughts about that meditation? Any more questions about what we talked about today? Okay, well, I wish you well on your meditation. I hope you have a good week with that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.